Alright, so this is going to be a demonstration of what I've learned using the app that I decided to use for my final project, which is Xcode using Swift. Xcode is the app that developers use on Apple platforms to make iOS applications and OS applications. Today we're just going to look at making a basic information page for an imaginary brewery that I have been kind of formulating throughout the semester in a number of different projects in different classes. We're going to use the single view application since it's just going to be a single page or single page at a time displaying bits of information a little bit at a time. So we'll click on that. The product name, Green Mountain Brewery. Green Mountain Brewing. We'll go ahead and keep my name and everything. This is just if you were to use them in the App Store, it would verify you and your website and your company so that you could be more easily found when people are searching. We are going to use it on the iPhone. We are going to be using the Swift language, and we'll just go on to next. It's going to create a folder for you. I would go ahead and use that to keep things organized. So based on all this, this is just the basic setup of the general info of the project that we're working on. What we're going to want to do is click on the main storyboard, which is what we're primarily going to be doing. At the end, we'll connect it to a line of code, which is kind of an interesting way that Xcode works, where you can kind of work within what would be the regular view of your app on whatever platform, but also connect it with more traditional style coding that you might see in other programs. So you get a visual and a very computational view of what you're doing so that you can compare and contrast and get an idea of where you're going. We're going to use the view controller and drag that right in there. That's going to be our the basic canvas, you might call, that we're going to work from to build our app, or build our about informational page for my new hypothetical brewery. Select the controller. We're going to be using the 4.7 iPhone, iPhone 6, and that should be good there with those specs in the attributes inspector. Now that we have our screen, we're going to look for another object to try and start assembling what the page will look like. You can scroll through all these objects. These are all things that you can kind of just drag and drop into what your canvas will be based on what your needs are for your for your application. Right now, I would like to use an image that would be the kind of emblem or logo for the brewery. Instead of typing that in, I'm just going to use an image that I'd made prior. So we'll just type in image view, drag and drop. To add an image to our project, we need to go to the assets over here in this folder. You'll notice there's nothing there, but this is where any sort of media or any sort of files that we're going to use, this is where they're going to need to be. To add those files, we go down to this little plus down here, and hit import. GMB, PNG, which is Green Mountain Brewing, an image in my folder. I'm going to grab that and hit open. It'll now be accessible within my project here. Go back to the main storyboard. Oops, sorry. Just click the main storyboard. Brings us back here. Seem to have lost our image view, but if we can just go ahead and throw it in there again. Center it, put it at the top since it will be the logo. Now that we have our image view again, we'll go up to the attributes inspector, select image. We're only going to be able to access images that we've put into our assets, which I just put in GMB. There it is. Hit enter, and it appears. It's already been formatted to fit the screen size that I'm using, but if you were trying to, you're in need of correcting a size so that it would fit, you can adjust the size of your image view, then hit editor, and you'd be able to size to fit the content, which would then fit within your image view box. But mine's already ready to go, so there it is. Next, we'll want to put in some information on what the brewery is and where it's from. So to do that, we're going to need a different object. Actually, we'll even put in an about brewery title, which we'll need a label, which is how we'll do text. I'll type in label. There it is. Drag and drop. Just like any sort of text box, there are lines to help guide you with your symmetry. Open it up so that it's nearly the full width of your screen, even on either side. You can select there. All your typical text alterations are over here, still in your attributes inspector. Now that we have our GMB and about symbol, we can go ahead and add another label if we wanted to display some information about the brewery, since this is the about page. Center it, expand text box similar to what we did with the about. We might even keep it a little bit more narrow than that. Center it again. Let's make it a little larger for our content. I already have our content brought up, typed up in a document, so we can just go ahead and copy and paste. Have it selected here. The text right here is plain, and right here you can see this is label, what text is already in the box. You can go ahead and delete that, hit Command and paste. We want to put it to 0 lines. That ironically makes it so that it will format through the entire box. Go ahead and hit enter. There you see, it's all lined up. You can mess with the fonts as we did before. System, custom, and we'll continue to use masses. Obviously, we're going to want to include some sort of contact information, so we'll go ahead and make a little bit of space here. Copy and paste the about GMB. Stop clicking on it too many times. Copy, paste. We'll go ahead and change this to contact. Enter. Recenter this. Go ahead and paste again. Create this a little smaller since it's going to be smaller information. These are just made up contact infos that I made, but it did pre-make them. Just use this. Paste in there. We're going to go back and we're going to change the font size to 18. Maybe big enough. Sure, we'll go with 18. Done there. It's been centered. In the text box, we'll center it within the screen. Do this again. Fill this one with the phone number. Select that again. We want this to be our new phone number for the brewery. Again, totally made up. That 2 5 1 2 3 4. Already got those changes that I made before, so just hit enter. Boom. Very simple, very skeleton. It's not pretty, it's not designed, but it gives us a platform to work from. Now, like I was saying before, you can connect what attributes and what objects you've applied to your view here and connect it to the code that you'll be using within the app. The way that we do this is we use something called an outlet, which is where in this program you connect excuse me, you connect an attribute within the file, within your view here, and basically drag it into the code. I'll show you how that's done now. To get started on this, we're going to have to create a new file for which the code will sit. So we'll go over here to the Green Mountain Brewing project that we have, right-click, new file. Despite working in Swift, we will not be using the Swift file. We'll be using Cocoa Touch class. So go ahead and hit next. We're going to want to name this something that we're connecting it to. I think we're going to connect it to the About GMB title. So we'll just call this About GMB. We want to keep it in UI View Controller. We don't need to worry about XIB file. We're already working within the iPhone. It's already done that for us. We want to make sure that we are in Swift, not Objective-C. Go ahead and hit next. Again, it's going to bring us back to the file that we're using, excuse me, that it pre-made for us at the beginning of the project. So we'll go ahead and create. Now you'll see we have some lovely code. We do not need any of the did receive memory warning. We're going to go ahead and just delete that. We do want to keep these final bracket down here, so that's going to help us in the rest of our code. We can go ahead and hit backspace there. So we now have our code page, and we're going to want to connect it with our main storyboard page. So if we go ahead and click main storyboard again, go up to excuse me, our assistant editor, the two little circles up here, double click, click Assistant Editors on the bottom. This is going to connect both of our storyboard screen with our coding without interrupting each other to the point that it's confusing. This is a little bit more efficient. So we're going to find a happy middle there. And to actually connect our about GMB file to the code, we're going to hit Control, go within Views. Here's about GMB, and we're going to grab this label object, and we're going to drag it down into the code by hitting Control and drag. So Control. And you'll see a little line showing you that you've grabbed onto it and you're pulling it down. And we're going to put it right in here. It's going to ask you to, it's going to ask for the connection to be, is it an outlet? It is an outlet. We want to connect from our storyboard to the code. And we're going to name it about GMB. We're fine with the UI label. That's the type that we're working with. We're trying to connect a label object to our code, and the storage as weak is fine. So we just hit connect, and it has created its own part of our code. And just to show what we can do now that we have this, connected to our code, the file itself will defer to whatever the code is saying. So even though we have, even whatever's typed up here in the your options bar, it'll defer to whatever you have in the code. In the code, is about GMB. It's already forming it for us. Dot text equals, and whatever text we throw into these quotations will be what shows. About GMB, which I know is what's already up there, but I'll show you that now that we've done this, if we go and we select about GMB, go up here and type in back to label like it might have been when we first started, even though this is now changed in our screen, if we actually go and up to this button here and play our app, we'll see that it's deferring to what the code is, so that the code will work independently from whatever we have here. And there it is, about GMB. There's a lot more you can do within this. Certainly gets very intricate as you start adding layers and layers and different pages, but that's kind of a basic introduction as to what you can do within Xcode using Swift. It's a very cool combination of having a view of what you're doing and incorporating the code that you're using to create your app. Thank you very much. I hope this was informative.